We're ready. Call the meeting to order, 7 o'clock. And, right,
And the clock's right.
and the clock is right, I was checking that. First item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any amendments, additions or amendments to the agenda? Councillor Hunter?
Just a quick question. So when agenda item number 9, confidential items land personnel, that's an indication to go with them.
I believe that is two items, one land, one personnel.
Two items and personnel, two items and land.
Any other additions, amendments, questions? I have a motion then to adopt the agenda as presented. Councillor Panasic has made that motion. All in favor? It's carried. Next item of business is scheduled delegations. I believe there are no scheduled delegations. Delegations? Minutes? Council A.
I was thinking about, are we maybe we cut that up? She doesn't wait again. If we can move it up.
I'm also thinking that the report should just, we should be changing the agenda order in order to get those reports further up.
I just know that, he sat in for so long, many times, that, so I know they're all important items, but this time I guess we can't fit it in.
Yeah.
And how would that be done?
But you're back to that already.
Right. Should have done it first.
The thought was there for you. I'm sorry.
And not me?
Protective services.
Oh,
Thank you.
you're hiding there. Very good. All right, so I'm sorry this time, but certainly it's something to be discussed. Mr. Panasic, we should talk about the procedure bylaw because that's where this falls and have it moved actually up into a different area.
We'll just be really quick. We'll get there right away.
Very well. So the next item of business is the regular meeting of council minutes, April 23rd, 2014. Are there any errors or omissions of these minutes? And if not, I don't hear anything. Councillor Long?
Move to adopt and accept.
Councillor Long has moved to accept the minutes as presented. All in favor? It's carried. Next item of business is the Intermunicipal Development Planning Committee. It's an item of new business. Could I have a motion? Councillor Carrier?
I'll make the motion that we do the recommended action that council direct administration to work in partnership with municipal district of Big Lakes administration to take terms of reference for council approval and creation of an intermunicipal development planning committee.
Any discussion on this item? This item came up at the intermunicipal meeting and it was brought forward by the MD, the CAO of the MD, who had indicated that the development along the perimeter of the town and the adjacent MD is an area of concern. Any, you were, I mean, yeah, any other input on that? That you can-
They just want to get together, work with us to see how we plan on expanding and growing our town, and how we want to set our boundaries, and together, so we're going to know before something comes up.
Any other discussion?
Makes good sense to do this, work with our neighbors.
All in favor? Items carried. Next item is the doctor and physician retention house cost sharing. Need a motion, please? Councilor Donato?
I make a motion that council direct administration to forward the doctor physician retention cost sharing arrangement to the intermunicipal cost sharing agreement meeting being held at a later date.
Right. Now, I actually thought that the cost sharing of the doctor, of the housing for the doctors was part of the intermunicipal agreement. It was not?
I think it's not well outlined. There is also the issue. So when we review the municipal cost sharing agreement, it's likely that we will be very clear.
Oh, okay. Any other questions on this item? All in favor? Items carried. Next item in business is the financial statement, year-to-date March 31st, 2014. Can I have a motion? Councilor Carrier,
Make a motion that the financial statements year-to-date March 31st, 2014 are received for information.
discussion on the financial statement. This is the first set of financial statements that we have received this year. I believe in November or December, there was a motion that the revenue and expense by department manager's report would be forwarded to the councilors on a regular basis every month. I have not received one yet.
Once I receive it from
So we haven't received anything for any of the months, January, February, March, or April. How long will we be waiting for it?
I'm sure that this month we should have something ready for that.
And every month thereafter, I mean, that was a direction of council.
I think what has happened the last 3 months is that the finance has been very, very preoccupied with the audits. That was the most important thing. Now that we're done with the audits, we should be able to provide you.
So managers have not been receiving any financial information?
No. Anytime we receive the information, we have it from council as well.
How do the managers know what they're doing?
They're very much in exactly what we're doing.
Councilor Enter?
I had a question not related to your guys' conversation, sorry. My question's in regards to the natural gas distribution, and I was curious why the expenses were about a 35% increase.
Mr. Tamaka?
Natural gas distribution. We were expecting year-to-date to be about 567,000, and we're about 753,000. So about 35% increase, but I'm imagining something happened. Did we have?
Do you want me to shed some light on that?
Yep, please, if you can.
Natural gas prices have risen about 35% over last year. And natural gas prices, or natural gas costs, compose a large part of natural gas expenses in that department.
Councilor Panasic?
Well, I'm just thinking though, if, in terms of this budget, if the price of natural gas goes up, that gets carried over to the consumer, so we should be bringing in more money, therefore it should be still fairly close, I would think.
That's correct. And in fact, if you look at sales of goods and services, you'll see that that's way over budget.
Oh, okay.
And that's
So
the top
where
line
it's-
there.
It's showing you goods, okay.
Councilor Enter?
So it also included the sale of goods and services. You would note, and thank you for doing so. About 480,000 for land. So we've got about 400,000. Covering the 200,000 expense. Okay.
That's correct.
So on the land sale, Mr. Tomato will be 480,000, I believe that's Mr. Courtney's payment. Will that be going going into a separate, line for further use of the West End Industrial Subdivision? Or are you planning, what is the plan for that money? Seems how it's a one-time piece. Councillor Long?
But would that not be a direction of council?
Obviously, but I want to see how the county is treating it for now.
The thing to do on this is to wait till the end of the year and then see what our surplus is and then allocate the surplus according to the policy that's in place. So right now, the surplus is allocated towards future capital projects. If council desired that $480,000 of the surplus to be set aside for a specific use other than the capital projects, that's your direction. So you just have to let the administration know.
But we don't necessarily have to wait until the end of the year. I mean, if we want to start the servicing of another part of the West Industrial Park, we do have $480,000 to start that process. I don't know how far we can get, but we have no land for sale, and at the last council meeting, we had a gentleman in here who wanted to purchase land, and I don't think anything has ever happened to that request. Has it?
Do we not have some land still at that West End?
Unserviced.
Okay, but it's still, yeah, we can look at doing some servicing, but it's still there.
Unserviced land, yeah.
And we still, Peavine's still making their lands available too.
Nobody has bought any.
But we probably haven't had a bunch of requests. for it.
Actually, yeah, we've had requests.
Recently?
Yeah?
Like the town's received offers?
No, the town has never received any, but Peavine has received some offers, according to one of their counselors. But it hasn't sold. I had a question also on the natural gas, and it goes up. The cost of the natural gas, this was a question from one of the larger users in town. How is the cost set? Is it at the beginning of the month, or is it averaged for the full month, or?
The cost is fixed except for the actual cost of gas, which varies each month, and it's set at the beginning of the month. So we get notice from the gas co-op what the price of gas is going to be for May. The bills, actually, let me back up for a minute. The consumption for April, we already know the cost of that gas for April, and we send out the bills in May, so we're kind of a month behind. The cost of gas in that May bill will reflect what it costs the town to purchase the gas in April. So the May bill is for April consumption, and the cost of gas on the May bill is the cost that it costs us to buy that gas in April. Plus, we have a markup. I believe it's $1.40 on each gigajoule.
And so the cost of purchasing that gas, is that set the first day of April, the 15th of April, the 30th of April?
Well, it's set actually May 1st because we bill a month behind, so that's when the cost is set for the
So
contract.
April 30th, when you get the information, that cost, because gas fluctuates all through the month, 30 days of fluctuation, what day do they say, this is the day that you're getting the number for your billing?
Well, it's not a specific date, but it has to be before the statements are produced, before the first run or the first route is entered in. The cost of gas has to be adjusted. So usually it would be, we start entering in information maybe the 26th of April. So it would have to be in before the 26th of April, so probably the 25th. And they would enter in the cost of the gas for April on April 25th. It would be billed in May.
So, and you change that amount, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th? Do you ever change that amount, or once you pick the amount, that's it?
Well, we don't pick it. We're told what it is from our vendor, the gas co-op that we buy gas from. So we just enter it in once. It only has to be entered in once in the accounting program, and then we do the billing for that.
So it would be within 4 days of the end of the month 4 to 5 days of the end of the previous month, that's when the price comes through to you.
Well, that's when we entered in the accounting program. That actually probably comes around, the cost of April gas is even, we get notified that sometime in April, probably early April,
How early?
first week in April.
Pardon?
First week in April, we're
First
notified.
week in April, okay.
I'm just going by memory now. First week in April, we're notified by the gas co-op what the price of natural gas is going to be for April. But keep in mind, the 1st of April, we're still doing billing for March, so we don't update our accounting program until after our billing is done for March.
No,
Then-
the price is there. That's when you get the price. And the reason they're asking is because the price of gas spiked in April. And when they got their May bill, it was astronomical, according to them. And they wanted to know, when do we get this, when do we get the price? Because right after it spiked, it went down dramatically again. And they wanted to know, well, what happened? Why do we get the highest price? But we're getting the price usually in the first week of April. Or
That's
the
right.
first week of any month. That's
That's
when the price comes through. Okay, that's what I needed to know. Any other questions on the financial report? I have no questions because I find that the financial report doesn't give me all of the information the management report actually to me did. So, and you said I would get it when?
Yeah.
When he gets the info.
Have it tomorrow.
Could you send it then tomorrow, please?
Well, actually, the CEO sends it, but we'll make sure that it gets done tomorrow.
Yes?
Or was there any concern over the budget and the actuals for the government operating grants? There's quite a difference between them, but is that just normal that we just haven't got any in?
Yeah, there's no problem there. It's just the government grants are prorated equally over the 12 months, but we don't necessarily get them in equally over the 12 months.
Any other questions? We have a motion, could you read it back, please?
Moved by Councillor Carrier that council receive the financial statements year to date, March 31st, 2014 for information.
All in favor? It's carried. Next item of business is utility pricing policy. Could I have a motion, please? Councilor Rose?
Make a motion that council approve the utility pricing policy number 672014 as presented.
Questions on the policy as presented? Councilor Anton?
The one area I don't like is the concept, utility services should be priced on a break-even basis using the budgeted income statement approach, which includes amortization of capital costs. One of the areas we're trying to look at is different costs for different municipalities accessing our water. So if we use it as a straight line across on there, it means both parties pay the same. So I don't like it.
I agree, I don't think it's a statement that we want to be held to, it's a policy. Any other comments?
I think, did we not hear last meeting that we have to charge everybody equally? Like if we're, by the utilities board, we have to charge everyone equally. So I'm just thinking of your concern. I don't know if that's anything that we can charge one person a different rate than someone else.
Councilor Anton?
From the discussion I had with Vern, that is correct, except you can say, the residents of the town pay one rate. All the residents outside the town pay a different rate. You can't say this water co-op pays this one, this water co-op pays that one, or Farmer Brown pays this rate, Farmer J
Okay,
pays
so
this
you
rate.
can have a different one in town and out of town.
Yes.
But they all have to be the same in town or all out of town. Okay.
You can't say Linda in town pays this rate and you pay this rate. It's a blanket. That's what he's not here, is he?
No.
That's
But
the conversation him and I had probably 3-4 weeks ago.
And there was that,
It has to be uniform,
Brought
but
up.
you can't pick one farmer or one person or one
Yeah,
co-op.
you can't.
Yeah.
Isolate.
So it's still like to have two separate rates.
Councilor Panasic?
I don't know if this concept statement prohibits having two different rates, because what it's saying as a general rule is that the utilities have to be basically a break even. And it's not saying that you charge different, it's saying this is the goal, the concept is to break even and not subsidize utilities.
But the concept actually is you are allowed to make a small profit. And the small profit then could be used to reduce taxes in the town. So this one is strictly a break even, and I think that limits us to whether or not we actually would like to make a small profit.
Yeah, that's what you're saying, break even or cost plus basis. But I think right now, we're so far away from breaking even that it's never gonna get to making a profit. I mean, we're not, if we raise it that much that we're making a profit, we're probably gonna be out of council.
Councillor Long?
I think as well, if we're looking at, if we did incur a profit, that those funds should be reallocated back into our water treatment, our sewer, I mean, those things have to be taken into account. We're already looking at what happens in the lift station when you let it fall apart. So those funds, I would think, would be better served to set aside into an account for upkeep and increase in improvements on the facilities that we have, as opposed to tax.
So I think it's a question of whether you want the concept in there or just delete it and continue with what you've got. Councillor Carrier?
Can you just add for a small profit in that concept line?
No, because what's small?
Cost plus.
Or concepts?
Cost plus, again, it's so vague.
What would you suggest?
I would either delete it or leave it, one or the other. And myself, I would say delete it. I don't think the concept really is anything. We're talking about the purpose. The purpose should be the concept. The scope is what it applies to. And it's a pricing policy.
In my opinion, just going back on I like it there because you sort of know this is the target. That's my opinion. I mean, this is the goal, whether we can get there or not. We're not even, we're not there yet. But at least it's sort of a target. We're sort of looking to get there. So I like the idea that this is a goal for the policy.
Councillor Long?
Even though the concept says that we're looking at a break-even basis, I mean, as to what Councillor Hunter was referring to, we're not at a break-even basis. We're at a money-losing proposition with insofar as our water for the MD, for example. So I would like to see us look at this as break-even, but we need to look at how are we going to recoup our costs and get to that break-even point, and without being entirely on the backs of people at the MD, but at the same time, making sure that we get our fair share.
Mr. Tomaco?
We need something from administration for clarifying this a little bit.
Please.
Okay, the bit about the concept, that's a pretty well accepted concept as far as municipal pricing goes. Municipalities are not supposed to make a profit. We're a lot like a co-op. We provide the services to residents because we can do it cheaper than a profit-oriented enterprise. Once we start charging a profit, there's no distinction between us and a profit-oriented enterprise, and taxpayers, residents of this town, do have a right to object to such things. In the Municipal Act, it does state in a number of areas that reasonable costs or reasonable pricing is what it costs you to provide the service. So you have to be very careful when you want to do cost plus pricing. As the mayor mentioned, just how do you determine plus? Now I do mention here that if there is a surplus in a particular event, it becomes part of the net surplus for the year, and then we've got a policy on what to do with the net surplus. So what we do is we just put it into, it becomes capital or funding available for capital projects in the future. The idea, and the other thing is, if you take the concept out, then how do we price it? it's integral in order for pricing, because break even, it's not that hard of a calculation to figure out what the break even price is. So if you take that out, we're left in the black, we're left in the dark. Okay, so what is the price? And as Councilor Panasic said, it gives us the target. So it's really difficult if you take that break even target out. Then you have to replace it with a target. And if you replace it with a cost plus, then you run into the problem where you're trying to make a profit, and that's not the idea of a municipality.
I think actually, if we were to look at the city of Medicine Hat, who own their gas, their own gas, and ask them how much of a profit they make on their system, that would give us a little bit more of a benchmark as to how they do it. I don't believe at all that the city of Medicine Hat operates on a break-even basis. They wouldn't be in the business of selling gas if it was just break-even. So I almost think that we need a little bit more information about what other municipalities that are operating this type of a system and selling it are doing. Mr. Tomaco?
But I mean, I think the issue of adding amortization is a very high burden for the taxpayer. Most municipalities are not even able to break even as soon as they begin to factor in amortization. So the threshold is already high for the residents. It's never been done in the past, and it's something that we want to do in the future. Amortization calculated in this whole equation is already a burden, and I'm just wondering how do we even get there to even start thinking about profit. So that's my dilemma, because when I do a quick calculation, when I add amortization and try to look at a break-even from the departmental reports, it's a steep hill. It means that you have to raise some of the prices in a way, and I'm not sure what the reaction of the residents will be. It's been on my mind for a very, very long time. And so the issue of profit is not the issue. It's even gets breaking even by including amortization. That's the burden.
So again, I would say go back to the city of Medicine Hat and find out how much of the amortization are they including in their system. Councilor Panasic.
In my opinion, I would be all right with passing this as a point now, and then if we get to the point where we're getting close to breaking even, by chance, I mean, we can go back to this policy and review it in 5-6 years. I mean, I know, like Mr. Tomaco has said, that we're not even getting to the break-even point to even start suggesting that we're going to make a profit on this. I think is pretty far-fetched at this point in time. So I'd be prepared to accept it at this point, and then if we get to that point, relook at this policy. That's my opinion.
If I might just make a clarification, Madam Mayor. We actually do generate a surplus in waste management and in natural gas. It's just water and sewer that are the issue. And another thing I would just like to say too is that just a quick and dirty calculation is water rates would have to, in order to break even, water rates would have to rise 22%. We'd almost have to double, not double, but go from $25 a month flat charge to about $44 a month in sewer.
And when are we discussing setting these rates?
It's in the policy. It would be in September. Bylaw will be presented to council in September, with the new rates becoming effective January 1st. And we would formulate a budget for 2015 for our utilities in the summer, figure out what the break-even pricing is, present it to the council in the form of bylaw in September, providing residents with 90 days notice for the new pricing to become effective January 1st.
So you're only doing this once per year.
That's correct.
It's a budget. I'm sorry.
No, we're setting utility rates once per year. Is that what you're doing? You're suggesting?
Based on a budget that we make up for 2015.
Right. So for this year, you're not doing anything for this year?
That's correct. Budget has been set.
Well, why wouldn't you do anything for this year, knowing that we're operating at a loss all year?
It's our strategy and planning for the future. We're not going to be a knee-jerk reaction and rearrange everything 2014. We pretty much got 2014 planned. We'd like to get a head start in planning 2015. We'd finally like to start planning for the next year as opposed to still doing work for this year.
But this was brought up in 2013, that this was a problem. So we're letting it go another year and another year?
Approve the policy and something will be in place for 2015.
Well, I don't believe that makes sense, but maybe the rest of council has something to say about it. Councillor Rose?
Sorry, just a fine.
No, the only thing I was going to add is that we did talk about the pricing when we were doing the budget. And we knew we weren't on the cost recovery, and we had said at that time, let's make this a target, and starting to look at pricing rates and been asking for them. So it wasn't as if we didn't deal with it. It's been looked at, and I guess what we're hearing, take a little bit of time to do it, but I'm not sure if we should do it in the middle of the year or, I mean, actually setting the rates in September, which is, it's getting pretty close now.
Councillor Enter?
Yeah, during the budget discussions, if I recall correctly, the Superintendent of Public Works brought forth examples of 8 other municipalities and wanted to adjust the rates for this year, was my interpretation, based on sewer, water, everything else. So I did a quick little study to see where we're at based on those. But my focus was, I wanted to look at if it was possible, and we did ask him that, and that's why he researched it, if we could charge different rates for different consumers. So I thought this was on the books for this year to be reviewed.
And if I recall, I had asked for the top 10 utility users of water and the top 10 utility users of sewer to be brought forward so that we could discuss and see what impact this was going to have on our. I don't believe it was to be put forward to 2015. I believe it was, this is something we wanted to do this year. Councillor Emcher?
There's nothing stating we can't move forward with this policy and actually review and act immediately, well, in the next month or two, and get something done in regards to utilities. I'm sure that's what we were discussing the last couple of months, as that they were under review.
Any other comments from?
But it says this, will require bylaw to be passed in September to allow for a 90-day notice. So does it specifically say that if we approve this, that that's what we're waiting until September, and we have to then, once we can set policy in September, or set pricing in September, but we have to give a 90-day notice. So that will go into 2015.
Councillor
So what are you,
Yes?
sorry, the question was, I'm confused then, what were you saying that didn't force us into that situation?
That we could still adopt the policy as presented, review current utilities, over the next month or two, make a decision. Those are effective still for this year, and then in September we revisit again for next year. It's just, it's taken us 3 months to get information and do something, and we're still moving.
Perhaps a wording change in here would make this allowable under the pricing review where we talk this bylaw to be passed in September. We reword that to say no later than September, and that opens the door if we wanted to make adjustments earlier.
Well, you could, rather than rejigging this, we could just not do anything with it and continue giving administration direction to get utilities set. And then have this one come back. Because actually, I think this is good. This is once a year, but I don't believe that it should be until 2015. I think the council wanted this year, wanted a price increase effective as soon as possible this year. Councilor Carrier.
I'm just a little worried if we start increasing our rates here in the rate. Now, everybody's happy. We didn't increase the taxes for the property taxes this year. They're happy they're getting a little bit of a reduction.
But they're not.
If-
And that will come soon, as soon as you get
If
into
I can
that.
finish.
Yes.
What we're trying to do is, if we're planning for the future, so let's adopt the policy, work with it, come September, try to see what we can do. I'm pretty sure we got things set now, just move on. They're happy with where the things are right now.
Different people that I have talked to are not happy at all and are looking for us to try and set things a little bit better, right? When the MD sells the water they buy from us and makes a substantial profit, all they see is that we are just giving away money to the MD. That's what I hear. Any other, Councillor Long?
And I don't disagree. It's sort of been a contentious issue to me as well. But when I like Councilor Panasic's idea of no later than being included into this. It sort of leaves that for us to move on it if we want to do it earlier. But when we start looking at the top 10 users, and then we start looking at those individuals, one of them for sure is going to be the pool in the rec center. Buchanan's, now West Fraser. And are we going to look at increasing the town rate as well? I mean, these things we're going to have to discuss. And that brings us to Councillor Carrier, that I certainly haven't heard a lot of people in town saying, geez, I want you to increase our rate because our water isn't paying for itself. Just the opposite, because they know we're looking at increasing rates. But I'm concerned that this discussion is going to lead to then the discussion of increasing the overall utility rate both in the town and in MD. And I'll be on the record right now saying that we can't afford to do that to the people of the community. Can we look at increasing the rate for the MD? I think so, but not to a break-even point because it's a huge increase. And I think that would be unfair to the people of the MD to make that big increase that quickly.
I just make a point of information that the MD is not making a profit on what they charge. You got to remember they got 5 hamlets and each one of them has a water purification plant in there. They don't even charge enough to cover their amortization. I heard that, talked to the treasurer from the MD, and that's what he told me.
Councillor Andrew?
It's my belief that the water they purchase from us, from the town, not those hamlets, is used to fill the water co-ops that are local, rural, not the hamlets. Maybe it is sold to the hamlets. We'll have to ask Vernon on that one. For utilities, until we look at information, we don't know anything. My first response or indication is that the only one I'm really looking at changing is the rate of water for outside users. That's the only one I really want to look at. I think that we're in the middle when I looked at sewer, water, and the rest.
Yeah.
We're on par with people, so let's not change ours. What percentage we change, if it's a small amount this year and a small amount next year, it's easier to swallow than 15 or 20%.
So I think
Councillor
I think the issue is, you know, we're looking at this policy, whether to approve it. Now we're on to, you know, should we be raising the rates right now? So we're getting a little off track. And I think, I agree that we need to look at those rates, and as long as we're able to look at those rates in the next while, you know, and get the information we need to have that debate, I think it's another topic. But if we can approve this with maybe a change so that we can make a change before September and move on, then we can get moving. And have a good discussion when we have more information about pricing and the other ones and the top 10 users and all of those things that we'd like to see. Well, the motion's on the table to accept this. But I'm just saying we should wrap it up.
So do you want to make an amendment at all, or are we going to be?
Yeah, I would make the amendment then in the pricing, or in the pricing review, second sentence, this will require a bylaw to be passed in or on or before September,
Not later than September.
or not later than September, that's better wording, thank you. To allow for the 90-day notice period.
Any questions on the amendment? Would you read the amendment back, please?
Friendly amendment moved by Councillor Panasic that Council approve the utilities policy as amended to reword the following. Utility pricing should be reviewed annually with any price changes to become effective at the start of the new year unless otherwise directed by Council. This will require a bylaw to be passed no later than September to allow for the 90-day notice period.
All in favor? It's carried. And
It's a two-edged sword, because now if we're late, now we can't pass one for that year. Till next year.
well, we can defeat the complete thing and then it be on that.
No one changed it.
Well, you still have one more motion.
Oh, yeah.
And if you wish that this completely be reworded, then I would suggest that this motion be defeated and it be sent back because it is. Would you like to explain that to the other councillors, what you've noticed, Councillor After?
My concern is sometimes that we may not get as much accomplished as we wish. And if for some strange reason we don't get it approved, or 3 readings or whatever by the end of September, there's no change for next year's utilities.
So this ties us in very, very strictly.
Madam Mayor, that is not cast in stone. Policy is a plan of action. Council at any time can pass a resolution accepting the policy.
That's what I'm saying. We could just change the policy later.
You don't even have to change the policy, just make a resolution that this one-time exception to the policy, we're going to do it in October or November.
Okay, could you read the motion now, please?
Moved by Councillor, which one? Did you guys voted on the friendly amendment, right?
Yes, we do.
So moved by Councillor Rose that Council approve the Utilities Policy 67, 2014 as amended to reword the following. Utility pricing should be reviewed annually with any price changes to become effective at the start of the new year unless otherwise directed by Council. This will require a bylaw to be passed no later than September to allow for the 90-day notice period. Pricing should be set to generate sufficient revenues to offset the budgeted cost of the utility services in the forthcoming year. A utilities department budget that shows a surplus of 10% or less of budgeted expenses will not require a review of its pricing. A utility department that shows a budgeted deficit will require a pricing review.
Any questions on that? All in favor? Carried. Next item of business is the grant applications payments. Do we have a motion on this, please? Councillor Amster?
The council approved the 2014 grant payments as allocated in approved 2014 final operating budget.
Any discussion on this? The checks, I presume, are they presentation checks for the grants?
What's your question?
Will they be presentation associated with these checks? Presentations, for example, if we're giving the Prairie Chamber of Commerce $2,000, you're cutting a check for that, aren't you?
Yes, yes.
Are you going to be allowing any of the councillors to present that check formally for photo op or anything like
Why
that?
don't we just another choice?
Do any of the councillors wish to participate in a presentation of any of these checks? Any questions on this?
I never thought of it until you brought it up.
Yeah. Probably wouldn't hurt to get some motion out of it.
Well, I think a lot of these organizations are worthwhile organizations in the community, and you just send a check out to them. Here's a chance to promote the organization and say, look, we feel that they're relevant to our community and that we should be, and we're supporting them. Yes, Councillor Andrew?
Unless our local media takes those photos and puts them in the paper. There's no,
Most of the organizations have no problem at all putting up the local media and saying, come down here, we're getting a check. For example, when the check was presented to the food bank for Mr. Zavalotnik's share, that was a good opportunity. There was an article about the food bank. There was an article that discussed the fact that this was a usage of the land. And I thought it was well written, and it did help the food bank. So here's an opportunity. Councilor Prairie?
Would whoever presents the check be looking for an honorarium as well? Because there are 16 applications here, so.
I think this is actually where honorarium comes in, as in you're paid $350 a month to do honorable things. These are honorable things. I don't very much, I would myself never charge for these.
Just want clarification.
Councillor Hampton?
clearly whispered.
Councillor Rose?
Some of them are sponsorships. So we'll be presenting this, because this all went in under grants, right? And this is my big discussion here and my concern, because this is all under the same category. And now they're all packaged in the same thing. So if we make a decision, we'll be presenting a check to somebody that we're buying sponsorship from.
What would you like to pick out? If anybody would like to pick out the ones, I'm sure that the check is printed
Can
and
we do, like, is that gonna be a little bit confusing to the people who see, like, this is public, right? So they're gonna get this list and we're gonna present to some, we're not gonna present to some. It's a little confusing to me.
summer sponsorships. That wouldn't.
Yeah, I know, but it's all under grants.
Councillor Hampton?
There might be a typo at the little smoky scale. I thought it was 5,000, not 500. But my suggestion was going to be that if anybody has any interest in presenting these checks to move things along, how would you just send an email to Mr. Tobacco and give an indication, like maybe Mike would like to do stars or something to that effect, or the food bank, just to speed it up.
Any other? Would you like to make an amendment there? Councillor Hampton, and just add that to?
No, he's okay. He's a smart guy.
Well, and then this is a straightforward issue. These grants have been published in the newspaper. People know that they're getting the grants. And if you have any interest in picking one to showcase yourself in the paper, it's going to be available. So
I don't think that that's an actual, I think the wording of that is pretty not quite the way it is. We're not showcasing ourselves as elected officials. We're trying to showcase some of these organizations. For instance, the Northern Association for Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder. Here's a good opportunity for people in the community to find out what it is they're doing. I mean, I don't think that anybody really knows at the brain injury what it is they do. Here's a chance to showcase them. And I certainly don't think that because you feel that elected officials take advantage of it. It's not that way at all. I think that, you have the opportunity to send an email to the administrator, and he will hold the check and make arrangements for it to be distributed at a appropriate time. Counselor Long?
And further, I mean, it's to showcase the community. It's to showcase that we recognize that there's groups out there that are deserving of funds, and we're trying to help them. So it's not so much a grandstand as it is putting our best foot forward and letting other communities see what we're doing. That's all.
Could you read that forward, please?
Moved by Councillor Emter that council approve the 2014 grants payments as allocated in the approved 2014 final operating budget.
Before I go one more time, yes, Councilor Rose?
This was asking a question about the skateboard ban.
Mr. Tobacco?
The way that it works for the skateboard park is they present us with an invoice and then we pay them. We don't just cut a check for $65,000 and give it to the skateboard park.
But in this grant approval, do we not have to have the 30, because it was only 32.5 that we approved this year, right? Does it not have to be in this list, or it doesn't have to?
I think there are a couple of categories of grants, and I even talked to Deb about it. We talk about the safe business grants, we talk about ADSS, and there are different processes for which those grants they have agreement to do that. And the skateboard also has a different level of
Right, because we already have an agreement with them from class.
yes.
See, and if I might just provide a little bit of clarification. It's a two-step process. The budget, you allocate the funds for the grants, and then you approve the payment to the specific organizations. So the skateboard park, although they've been allocated 35,000 or 60,000, I can't remember the number, the payment will not be rendered until they present an invoice. At that time, we'll bring an RFD to council to approve the payment.
What about the time for the, Little Smoky Ski Hill, is that 500 or 5,000?
I believe it's 5,000.
So you'll change that. All right, so the original motion is as recommended action. Any other questions on that motion? All in favor? It's carried. Next item is the tax rate bylaw. We have a motion then to introduce and give first reading to bylaw 06/2014. Councillor Long?
Move that council introduce and give first reading to bylaw 06/2014, this 14th day of May, 2014.
All right, so this is the setting of the mill rate. You will see from the backup information that the mill rate has decreased. But you will also see from the backup information that the assessment has increased. So that will translate into an increase in tax.
Maintain, not an increase. Your value went up, your rate went down, you're paying the same thing.
Didn't go down enough. Doing the calculation,
I didn't do that.
I did. You are going to pay, for every 100,000, you will pay an increase of $32.
I don't know, perhaps you'd like to share with us how you calculated that, Madam Mayor. Maybe there's a whiteboard there. I don't understand it.
Your 2013 mill rate was 11.2618. For 100,000, you will pay 1126.18. In 2013, in 2014, the mill rate is requested to be 11,133,2. You will pay 11,1332 for 100,000. The assessment went up 4%, and that was from Mr. Powers. I phoned him and asked him. On residential, not on commercial, on residential. So if you take the 2014 mill rate of 11,133,2 on 100,000, you're actually calculating on 104,000 because that's what you're now increased to. You will now pay $1,157.85.
Madam Mayor, I don't agree with your assessment that the assessment went up
You would have to
4.4%.
ask Mr. Powers, he was the one that gave.
The numbers are right here. The numbers are right here. There's 160 million last year, and the assessment went up to 163 million this year. So just quick math: 3 divided by 160 is only 1.875% increase
You would talk to
in the
Mr.
residential
Powers. I
assessment.
took the figures from him.
Hey, I got the figures from him too.
Could the difference between the two be a difference between residential and commercial and then averaging them out? Because you're averaging them out on a overall rate, right? Both commercial and residential, and perhaps he's talking strictly about residential.
I only talked to him about residential, and he told me residential went up 4%.
Madam Mayor, if the expert can speak on.
Yes?
I think that
Well, the expert is Mr. Powers.
he's also an expert. In-house expert.
Councilors, the numbers are right in front of you here. So I've got the assessment for last year, and I've got the assessment for this year. It went from 160 million, 654,000 last year, and this year it went up to 163 million, 41,000. That's hardly a 4% increase. It's a like I said, 1.875. These are numbers right from Warren Powers. Now, and the other thing I'd like to add too is that, yes, the assessment overall went up, the assessment dollars overall went up 3.3%, but that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's property increased, their assessment increased 3.33%. We had some new building going on here in town. I'm not sure whether you went out to see any of them, but that contributes for a good portion of the assessment increase. We've had the theater, we've had some buildings out in the industrial section of town.
You don't have a value on the assessment to new property, so we can subtract that out of there, because that would probably give you a much more true picture.
Well, I don't think the assessments went up 4%. I don't believe that the value of the houses in this town went up 4%, although Mr. Powers has said that the residential, not the commercial, which is where the new building is, the theater, which was last year, it wasn't this year, so it wouldn't impact this year. That was commercial, and in West End Industrial, that's commercial. So we're talking residential only, and residential, from what Mr. Powers told me, 4% increase in residential, which translates to a raise in taxes. This is what I was talking about when we approved the operating budget, that this was going to happen, that I could see that the operating budget was using up the 4% increase. And the treasurer and the CAO both assured me, well, don't worry, the assessment's going up, the assessment's going up. Well, I know the assessment's going up, but the mill rate did not go down enough to compensate for the 4% increase. And I will not support, again, I will not support this. Yes, Mr. Tanaka?
Madam Mayor, I think it's time to celebrate the good news stories when we hear them. And I think Councillor Evans made a very, very good point. The math is very straightforward. The whole tax revenues, tax base goes up, and therefore, mill rate comes down. Mill rate then multiply that by your assessment, whether it's your home, everything there still goes up. That is the general theory. To pick and choose numbers, you can debate this to the cows come home. But what you do know is that the mill rate did go down slightly. We cannot control for tax increase or tax decrease. If we hadn't held the tax revenue constant and we decided that the tax revenue would match the amount of expenses that we're supposed to provide, terms of services, the mill rate would have jumped up and tax increases would have been phenomenal. We are operating above the inflation rate of 2%. That means below in terms of the decreased tax rate. I think the town has done much well. The theory that if we take good care of this town and we begin to get more businesses and begin to get more tax base, hold our tax revenue well, that the mill rate will come down for the benefit of the resident is beginning to show. We just have to go out there and do the good things that we brought it down to our tax. These are small numbers.
I don't see anything where it is beginning to show that we have good management here. We had a discussion 2 meetings ago, and Councillor Long went on at great length about how suggestions for cutting taxes, nobody's bringing anything forward, can't find a suggestion. I listed off 5 suggestions, and not one thing has come back on it. Have you had a consultant come in from TELUS Communications to go through our telephone plan? Have we ever had an amount that we're saving from the electrical when we signed the contract? So you could come forward and say, look, by moving to a different electrical provider, we are saving X number of dollars. That's a good news story. I never heard that story here. That's operational. Well, that's good. Operational means I will not support another tax increase. And I don't know how the rest of the council can sit here and frown at me because I am speaking what the residents of this town are saying. We are the top, one of the top communities in our grouping of communities with taxes. What is our problem? Why can't we grapple with this and come up with a solution to get down to at least average? I don't want to be the lowest, but why can't we be average? Councillor Long.
One of the reasons we can't be average is because we've got 2 ice surfaces and a multi-million-dollar swimming pool complex that a lot of other communities don't have. And we have to absorb that cost. That's one of them. Number 2 is that our businesses now are starting to increase. We're starting to get new businesses, but for a while we stagnated. And to say that you do not see signs of good management coming from the people here, I'm looking at this budget and I'm seeing, and with all due respect, I'm gonna trust our treasurer's numbers, and I'm not seeing 4% that you're telling me. And when we do research like this, then it's good to share it prior to a meeting, instead of, if you have these numbers, then share them with us prior to the meeting so that we can research as well. Instead of, now it's Herb said, Linda said, Herb said, Linda said. And that does nobody any good whatsoever. We have to trust our management team. And so far, we have strong surplus, we have our capital works going on, we provided for the community, and some say too generously. But I've seen good things come out of this management team. And you may not want to vote it, you may not want to support it, but your numbers are hearsay. These are the numbers that we have to work with. Had we had the opportunity to indulge in a discussion and engage in a discussion with you through email and through information sharing and with good communication, then maybe we could have come up with different numbers. But right now, all we've got is your discussion with the assessor, and this is the number you throw at us. This is the number that we have from our management team.
Okay.
And so are you saying then that you don't trust the management team and the numbers they're giving us? And that's ludicrous. They're giving us good, strong numbers. And it's...
I'm saying that if there was Councillor Rose.
Just also, like for the record, I think we sort of forget, that did we not vote in a Replex levy a number of years ago? Like, well, how much is that?
It's the
That's
special needs.
And if we didn't have that on there, what would be our tax amount? And would we not have a lot lower taxes? But we did that, right? We agreed as a community to take that tax on. So we can't keep on yelling at administration to reduce the costs when we would probably have a lot lower taxes and we'd probably be a lot more average or maybe even lower if we didn't go ahead and say yes. And that was the community, right? So that wasn't, and as a council, that council gave instruction to administration to approve that, right?
And that was done
It's
by-
very,
How much is that, like, would it make?
well, it's 91 cents per thousand in assessment. So even in per dollars, it's smaller than 1 cent, a lot smaller. It's 0.0009, which is, you know, like 0.01 is 1%. It's $241,000 spread over $263 million in assessment. It doesn't affect the tax rate that much. So, but that's for the building. That's not for operating. It costs a lot more to operate it than it does to pay for the debt and the interest payments on that debenture.
Councillor Carrier?
By not passing this bylaw, how long are we gonna sit here and argue with it? Are we gonna end up making our taxes go out late again and have a whole, or like, I sit there and say we're not gonna pass this?
No.
How long are we gonna let it ride and then take taxpayers have to pay more because our taxes are late going out again, or? I don't understand this.
Madam Mayor, if I just may
Yes.
shed some light on the process. If the tax rate bylaw, we're suggesting 3 readings tonight. If it only goes to 2 readings and doesn't make the third because it doesn't get unanimous consent, we will present it at the next meeting and it will pass. And we'll get the tax notices out probably before June 1st. But at the latest, they'll be in the first week in June that they get out.
Are there any other comments? Councillor Ampton?
My curiosity is why Warren Powers provides 2 different numbers. And if he did, was it email format, was it a phone call? If it was email format, it'd be great just to forward that to everybody so we all see it. As most of you know, every time I talk to MGA or whoever, I send it off to everybody so everybody sees everything. You know, and that's the easiest way to keep it open. That is a great comment coming from Mike. Just send it to everybody that's working on it right away before the meeting comes. Because if it turns out that your conversation happened after his or whatever, and it ends up being that residential will pay more, it unfortunately will be seen as very negative and will be a lack of understanding. And I would be one of those people that don't understand.
This was a phone call that I spoke with him before the operating budget was passed. I told you all at council on the operating, when we talked about the operating budget, that there was going to be a 4% increase in assessment. The treasurer and the CAO did not dispute the fact that there was going to be an increase in assessment. I threw out 4% many times because that's what Mr. Powers had told me, 4%. Nobody said anything about it.
But an increase in assessment is good, right? Like, that's a positive.
It is.
So stop saying it sounds like it's a terrible thing that we've increased our assessment. That means we've increased, we have new properties, we have properties that are worth more. Those are all really positive
Possibly.
things.
They should be worth more if he's telling us they went up 4%.
Well, is he telling us our residential assessment went up? Like, I'm very confused about the numbers because, Herb, what are the numbers that you've just given us? Because I'm looking through this thing, not finding the total assessed, the increase in this. Because I thought it was just like 1.5%, and I looked at the numbers originally, so now I'm baffled where the 4% comes in.
Well, the bulk of the assessment occurred in the non-residential. I mean, if you just take a look at the RFD, the attachment to it, I've got the tax rate calculation for 2014 and the last year's tax rate.
Which page is that?
It's, oh, I don't know, Kristen, it's the second page, it's the page 2 after the RFD, an RFD memo. And it says,
Page 55.
page 55, thank you. Anyways, when you take a look at that, it says residential farmland assessments, 163 million this year. It was 160 million last year. That's an increase of 1.8%. But the biggest increase came in non-residential. It's 100 million this year. It's 94 last year. You take 6 divided by 100, you get 6% increase in the non-residential. So that's where the assessment increase came from. And the other thing I'd like to point out with this tax rate bylaw, you can't change the rate at this point because the rate is a function of what was set in the budget and what the assessor says the assessment is. So you can argue about it until the cows came home. You can't change the rate unless you want to go back to the budget and change the budget. So save yourself some time, pass the darn thing, because it's going to get passed next meeting if it doesn't go through tonight. Let us get the tax notices out. Let us carry on with things. Part of the problem and this goes back to the policy on utilities, is things get delayed and delayed and delayed, and it's sure not the administration that's causing delay. We are trying to quicken things and put in place a structure so that we can plan and we can move forward. Really be appreciative if council would work with us.
Councillor Hampton.
I'm trying, I really am. For 4 months, we're told, just toss it for now, and we'll do that later. Toss it for now, we'll do that later. It's been 6 months, and I know that we talked about utilities since January, at least. It's come up about different options. I agree with you, though, unless we want to reopen the budget, we're kind of hooked for this year. I just hope that the residential assessments, if they went up, whatever percentage they went up, the decrease is matched in the mill rate, so that they're the same. Other than that, I really don't care at this point.
One other thing I just might mention, that school taxes, the tax rate went down on school taxes. The tax rate went down at the home for the aged. In all likelihood, people that get their tax bills this year will notice a slight decrease from last year.
You know, that's a horrible thing to say.
No, it's not.
On the back of the school and the foundation, you're taking a tax increase.
I'm not saying that.
They're
Madam Mayor,
saying they're running more efficiently. We're not even trying.
no, you know what? It's talk like that that really crucifies this council.
I'm sorry, sir, but I think maybe you should realize that this is the council, it's the council's meeting, and you're an employee of the CAO. So
Understood.
saying that talk like that crucifies council, I don't think is appropriate at this point.
I think this discussion is not really appropriate.
All right, we have a motion, could you please read it?
Moved by Councilor Long that council introduce and give first reading to bylaw 06/2014, this 14th day of May 2014.
Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion for second reading? Would somebody like to make it? Councillor Long?
That council give second reading to bylaws 06214, this 14th day.
Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Last motion, Councillor Carrier.
I make the last motion, the council upon unanimous consent give third and final reading to bylaw 06/2014, this 14th day of May 2014.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion's defeated. This will go on to the next meeting. It was defeated, it has to be unanimous. Not opposed. Next item of business will be the loan guarantee by the High Prairie Golf Club bylaw, number 2, 2014. Could I have a motion? Councillor Hampton?
Make the motion to adopt this presented for the recommendation.
And this is a loan guarantee bylaw for second reading. Second reading. Any questions on this bylaw? Councillor Danaka?
This was advertised in the paper. Did anybody object to or come and voice any concerns? Nothing? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Long?
Go ahead.
I did receive some discussions and concerns concerns, not so much about this, but the members of the golf course club, High Prairie Golf Club, that came to see me, brought up the concern that they see themselves being pushed into the direction of the recreation board and being under the management of the rec board, and they are being opposed to that. One of the individuals said that if that's the case, they don't want this money because it seems like they're being led over to the rec board, and he said, what does the rec board know about this golf course and all the facility and how it runs, and keep your hands off, in not so polite words. Overall, I think it's going to be a good thing for the course, but again, just for the word for the wise, for discussions coming up for the rec board. They're not amused.
I was at the committee meeting, I don't know, in the last week, and nothing was mentioned, nothing was said. I did have an unofficial conversation with someone about that topic. I did make those comments previously that I don't understand why the golf is not under the rec, but that's not a new process.
Okay. Probably the same.
Probably.
Any other comments regarding the second reading of the bylaw? All in favor? And this is motion now for third and final reading. Councillor Panasic,
On that motion?
any other questions on this? And I'm hoping that the golf course's financial situation is straightening up. Well, they managed to pay it down before.
We don't casino district at all.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? It's carried. The next item of business is the Children's Resource Council representation. Could I have a motion?
I'll move as, I'll move as proposed. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, I need a name. Oh, I don't need a name.
I like your name.
Yeah. Maybe we should discuss who would be interested first.
Well, according to Councillor Carrier, you need a motion before you can do any discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion that, who am I gonna pick? Debbie Rose. As a council representation on the Children's Resource Council, and we already have an alternate, right? And Quentin as an alternate. Yeah, okay. Councilor
All right.
after.
So the motion is Debbie Rose, Councillor Rose as council representation, Councillor Emter as the alternate representation. Discussion?
I actually don't have a problem with being a representation, except for we wanted to ask you if you were the alternate. That was sort of unless somebody else is interested. I'm more than willing to.
All in favor? Carried.
Before we read that one, and it's not necessarily
Maybe read
on
yours.
there, but I need to, I've mentioned getting alternates for Lesser Slave Watershed Council and for Park River Housing. And it's becoming pressing because I've got 2 meetings in the next while that I'm not able to attend. One is actually tomorrow night with Park River Housing. They're not overly worried about this particular meeting and having a representation there, but I think it wouldn't be bad if anybody's interested and we can get an alternate.
I actually believe that Councillor Rose was supposed to bring forward alternate also for the LSLEA. was an item from the minutes, 2 meetings ago? No? Well, maybe,
Supposed
do
to
you,
bring forward an alternate.
yeah, they had asked all municipal representatives, because they're having so much trouble getting, quorum. So that's 3 organizations that require alternates. Do you want to make that an agenda item, or for the next meeting? That would be the time to review the minutes, or
So the LSLA and what you're talking
talk to Barry about it. You feel the direction.
And I'm the watershed and Heart River Housing.
When does the watershed meet?
The watershed is May 22nd, so that's next Thursday
Evening or day?
evening in Canusa.
Councilor Perry?
Do they have them on like a specific day, like, is it on a
It's
Thursday?
It's the 3rd Thursday of every month. And Heart River Housing is the 2nd Thursday of every month.
During the day.
No, it's in the evening also,
So both are evenings.
both are evenings.
And,
The time, Heart River Housing is 6, and the Watershed Council is 7. I could look it up and verify if anybody's able to attend, but I believe it's 6 and then 7.
I could step into the watershed.
So that's the 22nd.
Councilor Carrier?
It could be the alternate for the Harvard Foundation, so desired.
Okay, fine. Great with that.
Councilor Hampton?
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Councilor Carey as the alternate for XYZ, and then we appoint Mike Long for the alternate on the ABC.
So,
Because we need a motion before we can talk about
so
this.
Councilor Perry for High River, and then Councilor Long for Watershed.
Did you get that?
Okay.
Kristen, thank you.
You already have an alternate for Heart River Foundation, it's myself.
Oh, we already have a High River.
However, when is the date? I think maybe I would remove myself from alternate completely on that one, and I would go with your alternate to, which one is that?
Councilor Carey, Heart River, and Councilor
Carrier
Long,
from now on, that would be
Watershed.
okay with me. And the Watershed Council. Watershed Council. That was Councilor Long, right, as the alternate? Correct?
Yeah.
Do you want to get in on this at all? Okay. So, could you read the motion out, please?
Moved by Councilor Emter that Councilor Carrier be appointed as the alternate for Heart River Housing and that Council appoint Councilor Long as the alternate representation for Watershed Council.
Heart River Foundation.
Foundation. You can't read that for me. I said housing, that's my fault.
It is Heart River Housing. Is it Heart
Heart
River?
River
If
Foundation.
they consider themselves Heart River Housing, it's always HRH when they refer to themselves.
Yeah.
Because it might be registered.
They're
It might be,
registered as a
yeah.
foundation. Any other questions on this? All in favor? It's carried. Next item on the agenda is the museum agreement. We have a motion on this. Councilor Carrier?
Make a motion that we do the recommended action.
Right? Any questions or comments? Councilor Danaka?
I had gone through this prior and I had sent some of my concerns to Kelly to Mr. Tanaka regarding this. To me, there's, the same issues are still there. Under termination 3B, the tenant will not in any significant manner interfere with either the rights of landlord or other tenants. There's no other tenants there. The other one is
I know what you're saying, and I guess on page 73, if you look on statutory provisions, the following provisions are summaries of section 17 and 24 respective of the act. What act are they talking about? Is that the Residential Tenancy Act?
Yeah.
So you see, this is residential tenancy. Why are
Well-
we using a commercial lease similar to the lease from the Moosties building? All of those
Yeah.
people are commercial leases.
As a matter of fact, I took a lot of things and I went through every item that you had considered. I sat down with Brian and Krista just to make sure that we gave due respect to your recommendations. And when you look at the standard tenant agreement, this is the standard. There's nothing really violating anything to the extent that it cannot be passed, but everything was considered. I take and said, oh, if you look at it, that it makes sense. And everything seems to be increasing. And that's what we got forward so that the town and the museum can go forward and then implement this agreement. Because they had also suggested suggestions to us, and we have incorporated those suggestions in the agreement and considered yours.
Councillor Panasic?
I'd just like to hear, I'm not really sure if I know the concern, Tom. Is it that it's written in legalese? Or is
No,
that-
it's just that some of, from my perspective, some of the, what they have in here doesn't apply in the sense that the one that I cited, rights of landlord or other tenants in the, in the premises. It's a museum, there's no other tenants there. I don't think there ever will be any other tenants there. And again, like we were discussing and what the mayor had brought up, it seems for, I guess what I'm trying to say, for the town and the museum, it just seems to be so much more than it needs to be, I guess is what I'm saying.
Councillor Long?
I've heard Councilor 30 years.
Councillor Enter?
Thank you, Councilor Wong.
You're
The Hunterdon District Museum and Historical Society, or are they funded by both the MD and the town?
Yes.
Okay. Then I'd really like to see them pay for all their own expenses. I don't want to see the town being responsible for all snow removal, cleanup, maintenance and everything else, because then there's 100% expense onto us versus being part of the budget where it's shared 50/50.
I believe that when it says responsible, it means that we look after it and then we bill back. Is that true?
Or are we just doing it for them?
Yes, we
We
should ask the CAO on that one.
Okay, sorry, Kelly, could you explain to us how, number 5, page 68, add 7, brackets 4, that the landlord will remove all snow from the sidewalks, parking area of the premises. Do we then bill them for this?
I'm not sure how it works, but I can find out and get back to you on it.
Because my request would be that if we do it, we bill them, and then it's covered 50/50, I don't care. Or we don't do it, they hire someone, and then it's covered 50/50.
You know, we can look into that, I mean, operationally and find out what works. But what I encourage council to do is that we almost between these two there. That's a lease agreement between two entities that we almost own. Let's let the agreement go through. If there are operational issues that you're raising like this, I'll look into that and I'll give you feedback as to what the practice is.
Is there any other questions?
When we look at
Councillor Long?
snow removal, for example, we're talking about parking lot that's just right behind us here.
Because that's all the museum has is the walkway.
That's, yeah, so the billing of the walkway shoveling,
It would be more the grass cutting.
do we not already have people cutting the grass of this building, which is directly adjacent to? Okay,
Public Works, I think if they were here, they would tell you that they track their hours and they charge it back to the museum. And it is then billed half and half out to the MD and that. I go back to the concern that Councilor Tanaka has. You look at Schedule A. This is strictly a tenant landlord lease. We rent we rent the Moose Tooth building to commercial entities in the upstairs. We have commercial leases on file. Why don't we just use the same commercial lease that we have with Watershed, with WJS, with Family Community Services, and add in what it is that they're doing, because it's a commercial lease. We shouldn't be saying, we don't want you putting wallpaper up. We don't know about the walls, we shouldn't be driving nail screws and that. With the tenant acknowledged, she's inspected the premises and satisfied with the state of repair. This is all tenant. We're not doing a tenant landlord lease. We are doing a commercial rent lease. And we have templates for it. Why are we trying to make a landlord tenant lease, which specifically refers to the Residential Tenancies Act in it, and make it do? What are we doing? Yes?
Madam Mayor, if I may, the museum and the administration and us, they gave us a whole bunch of things that we wanted to see in this agreement. We've been incorporated that, respecting what the administration wanted, and they will be very satisfied with this agreement. If we let this agreement go by, I think that will serve their interest. They've been calling to find out whether this agreement has been passed. In the future, if you want to bring in something else, I think we can do that. But it's just an agreement, it's an operational agreement.
This is a 10-year agreement, sir. It's up to council.
I appreciate the hard work that we've done. We're not gonna make this. But I think we should look at this again. It seems that there are issues here that really aren't applicable. And if it is something that we need to have for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, then it should be something that applies. If it is coming from the landlord and now making reference to the Landlord Tenant Act from a residential standpoint, it's a museum. There's going to be lots of nails in the walls from hanging pictures. I mean, that's just the one thing that pops out. How hard would it be to look at commercial through the mayor? How hard would it be to look at a commercial lease that we have in existence and utilizing that for them? Would it be better suited, do you think?
No, I'd just say that the two administrations have gone through this. They've had a whole bunch of things. We looked at it. It satisfies the administration. This is not like an external entity. It's an entity that is a subsidiary almost of the town. It's almost a friendly agreement. So, I wouldn't give this to them.
This is a historical society. It is an external entity. It is a non-profit organization, and this is a legal document. And it will be in effect for 10 years. So I think that in the interest of Councilor Panassa.
Donna, have you had any feedback on this agreement from the board? Whether they think it's all
The
right
initial
or not?
draft that was sent out a month or so ago, that we were asked to go through and see if there was things that we had. The feedback that I got from Darlene, because she had gone through it, the curator or the executive director, I guess is her new position, was that she felt a lot of things really didn't apply, and she basically, as the mayor had said, she said, why can't they just use the same lease as they use for the library?
other questions? So we have a motion. Could you read it back, please?
Moved by Councillor Carrier that council approve the letter of understanding between the town of High Prairie and the High Prairie District Museum, and Historical Society, and the mayor and or deputy mayor and the chief administrative officer to execute the 2014 lease agreement between the town of High Prairie and the High Prairie District Museum and Historical Society.
Okay. So that's a motion to approve the existing lease. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is defeated. Would anybody like to make a new motion? Councillor Long?
I make a motion that we direct our CAO to explore using the library lease as a template. And enter a discussion with the Historical Society to come up with a mutually acceptable lease agreement based on the library board lease template.
Commercial lease?
I just pulled up the library lease and it's the same.
Try it, well,
And I pulled up a lease from the Moose Tooth building and it's the same. Maybe can I suggest that we send it to our lawyers and have them recreate one? A commercial lease?
We don't have any commercial leases at all. We're gonna need one soon.
This is the same.
Got nothing to?
Oh, okay, well, this is, because this is the same agreement with the Moose Tooth and all this.
Just a schedule. And every lease has its own schedule, and that's where you'll add and subtract. I mean, that's where we can make amendments if people aren't happy with it.
And the references to residential tenancy that should be deleted. Councillor Enter.
I would like to see a separate lease, even though we are at arm's length from each other. That's about it. If something stupid ever happened, they don't walk away. The lease is null and void because it's a tenant lease instead of a commercial lease. Make one that's gonna be there.
The recreation board has a commercial lease. If you want a template.
You can get them from
In the state board, commercial lease.
provide them.
So did you want to continue with your one?
Well, again,
If you change it to explore a commercial lease versus a library lease, I think that would work.
is that a friendly amendment?
I think that's just the motion you're going to
Yeah, well, that would be, yeah.
Did I make the motion though, and have we voted it?
No.
I make a motion that we direct our CAO to contact one of the local realtors to see if we can find ourselves a commercial lease template that we can utilize, and create a new lease agreement, and possibly even explore having those changed over to all our other existing agencies, like Moose Tooth and Library. But for now, let's deal with this one. I apologize.
When you're finished, do you want to read it out, please?
And while we're waiting, it's worth noting that Montreal picked the Boston Bruins. Final score, 3-1.
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Long that council direct administration to explore alternative commercial lease templates that the town of High Prairie can utilize in the future.
into direct discussion with the museum or enter negotiation with the museum using that template?
It would be anyway.
We're gonna take a break after this for 5 minutes. We're moving along fast. Really, I think we are. Now we
Moved by Councilor Long, the council direct administration to explore alternative commercial lease templates that the town of High Prairie can utilize in the future and enter into negotiation with the High Prairie and District Museum and Historical Society.
all in favor? That's carried, and we will take a 10-minute break.
Sorry, Kelly.
Oh, no, that's all right. No, that's all right. Good job, though. Well done.
Are you gonna get me? You want to get in
Mr. Zadell. I don't know where she got her 4%. Right, I don't, but if he told her 4, tell him he's wrong. And he can go all the way to 2.18. Because I don't even care up here, because when it goes to the residents, right, they're gonna look, okay, I have a $300,000 house, that was my rate, that's what I paid, and now this is my new rate. I can only go up 2.18% per year. Or my taxes went up. They don't even look if it's actually taxes. They don't break it down. They don't give a shit. They look at the bottom number. But if that number's gone up, it's not gonna be nice.
I think it'll be
So I'm
good for most people.
Oh, well, I just did mine, and I said, okay, if my house is 300,000, that's what I paid. And if her 4% is correct, then actually I do go up $75. Right on 300,000, $25. But I went with here, not here, because most people don't care about that number. They don't. It's going to come down to this one. So when it balances out. So if you could do us a favor, though, if you could do everyone a favor, send an email to him, say, could you clarify for me what the residential assessment's going to be, how much it went up, excluding new properties. Okay, so if there's a brand new home, because we don't care that there's a, well, we do care, but what you know what I'm saying. If a guy was 300,000 last year, what are you telling us worth this year? 306 or 312? That's what I want to know. Did it go 2% or 4% in value on an existing?
1.8.
1.8 is good. I love it. And it goes down. Yeah. Yeah, because like you say, the values may go up and down, whatever. I was expecting much higher.
Keep in mind the assessment is based on the assessment is used this year for taxes. It's actually an assessment in 2013.
Yeah.
Condition 7 is value. July 1st.
You're right.
July 1st.
Yes, previous year.
So you're there again.
I hope we're right. Sure.
Yeah, I didn't hear about it, but it was something about
So Boston was fun. Yeah. What'd you guys do? Nothing. Did you go see the Digit Marathon and everything? No, first day, we had to go to 3 times. Yeah. So I used to have this.
More than I have.
I just went through water, I never ever
Just
saw.
look like
Yep,
nothing.
with my tail. Regina's pizzeria, kind of big.
Yeah, I can see where that's a big thing for her.
Looking for it out there.
Yeah. Oh, I need
Do they have the water on you?
Downstairs?
It's just something.
But it's gonna be,
Oh, rebuild.
It's gotta work.
It just used to work. You-
That's right, exactly. Okay.
That's what I mean, they could still be close.
Not to rough it a little bit. Have to walk through that.
Yeah, and just getting water to boil and bring some jugs up. We weren't gonna be out there maybe on Monday, but we're gonna go to Edmonton for part of the weekend, so we'll miss that. I know Pat Dubé isn't looking at going, because he can't get his trailer in there, we got our dock pulled across it and the boat lifts are there. But we don't wanna move the dock until we can put more or less in the water, and so unless the ice goes off pretty quick, we won't go.
Well, I thought the ice was off.
No. I was up, well, is it basically in the same spot, basically from the marina out to Little Grassy, or is there?
No, it's further.
It's a little further.
No, I thought it was, I thought this end was all off. I thought the wind blew it all down to the other end and it was clear right to the narrows. That's what I heard.
No, when I was there on, I was in Dusart, it was on Saturday, it was ice right to the shore as far as you could see.
Okay. So we had a good wind.
And our west, we gotta be specific.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because a good east wind won't do us any good.
No, that's right, yeah.
Have you picked up a license this year? I've heard that they're changing some of the rates or closing, like usually you start fishing on the today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
14th.
But I heard rumors, and this is just speculation, that they were gonna close it off till the end of May.
And then we came to.
I don't know.
Your sustenance,
Yeah. Have to power through.
Extra chance this year.
Where did you go on holidays?
Yeah, I don't know.
But I, like I said.
I went to Anguilla.
Initially, this was.
Anguilla?
I was gonna go get mine today and then.